we're kind of looking at the testing for the AutoCAD certification test. I'm going to rerun through this. So when defining attributes, the attribute mode is used to ensure multiple attributes are ordered neatly in a block. And again, this one annoys me because the word ordered basically says how it's going to prompt you, but it also means how it's actually arranged in the block. And typically, the only one that actually works for this would be the lock position. So that would make sense for that. Draw order, we talked about that already, but let's do it again. Command allow you to do the drawing, in the drawing, select 3. They're talking about selecting 3. So you think about what you want to use with draw order. Draw order is typically something you want to allow something to show in front of something, or you want something to be moved to the back. Now, if you notice, they have 4 things here for front, and they have 1 thing set for back. You want your annotations to always be in the front. So this one is out. Bring dimension. Dimension is an annotation. Hatches are not an annotation. Text is an annotation, and leaders are an annotation. So the 3 that would make sense would be bring leaders to the front, text to the front, and dimensions to the front. That would be the ones that make sense there. Which properties and settings cannot be changed using the block attribute manager? Now, this one's kind of tricky, but you have to look at what they're doing here. The default value of an attribute is actually stored as part of the block's definition. It's not stored as part of the attribute. So that one doesn't apply. The invisibility setting for the attribute is something that is actually part of the attribute. And so you could update that with the Batman. The prompt for the attribute is also stored with the block as well. So that's not going to work. Transparency of the attribute, that's actually there as well. So which cannot be changed using the block manager. The default value will come across if you added a new attribute. So it would not, it's not completely out of the visible. The invisibility settings, you can adjust that in the attribute definition. And the prompt for the attribute, though, that is purely stored in the definition of the block. So it's going to pull that from the definition of the block, not from the attribute itself. So this would be the answer to that one. Symbols from the character map can be inserted into the multi-line MText. Which method should be used to do this? My thing here would be copy and paste in the character map. Okay, car map is when you type in Windows key R and you get the Windows run deal, and you type in car map. And then you can actually select from any of the characters in the font that you actually are currently using. So if you're kind of copy something from Arial and you want to actually get a specific symbol or something like that, you can highlight that symbol, like say it's this one here. You can copy that and you actually select, boom, and then you can actually copy it, Control C, and then you can actually paste that into a piece of MText and it would actually come across just fine. I'm not going to go through all these. I'm just going to kind of show you how some of these questions are kind of odd, but if you look at them, you dig into them, and you use your knowledge of what you know of CAD, you're going to be able to make some good guesses or actually understand what they're trying to get at. And some of these questions are phrased really weird. I'm not a big fan of them. When using the polygon option in the wipeout command, on which layer will the wipeout be placed? It's pretty simple. It's just going to be the current layer. Okay. It's because that's the way AutoCAD just simply works. Whatever current layer is going on. Dimensions can get kind of flaky because there's some dimension styles that will actually place things on that, but the wipeout command is going to place it on the current layer. And unless they've changed something in a later version, that's what I would assume. 6, refer to the exhibit. Oblique angles can be applied to dimensions, especially when working on an isometric drafting. Which tool should be used to add oblique dimension angles? Choose the letter that matches the icon. So you're talking about dimensions, all right? And you're talking about the oblique angle of the dimension, okay? You can see this is an aligned dimension here, okay? You have this right here. This is definitely not it. Let's talk about actually the range of the dimension. D is just editing the dimension. This one is actually an aligned dimension, and you kind of see an oblique angle look here because your lines are actually kind of oblique. They're not angled, so that would be the most make sense there for B. When working with XREF in a drawing, a clipping boundary can be used to manage the display of the XREF in the host drawing, except for which of the following? Circular, polygonal, polygon, polyline, or rectangular? Honestly, I don't know. I know it can do rectangular. I know it can do polygon. Polygonal is polyline. So, I mean, if you do a polyline, polygonal is it, but unless they're trying to phrase it as something else. I don't think you can do circular, but I don't know for a fact for sure. Let's find out real quick. So we're going to XREF. I'm going to just grab a drawing. Let's see if we can find something that's just kind of easy to throw in here. Three-way demo. Yeah, we'll throw the three-way demo in here. That's fine. And we'll just place it here. Boom. All right. Now, when you clip, you can type in X clip. Okay. Select objects. Boom. That's our X clip. Now, we have the option of clip, delete, generate polyline, or new boundary. I can say new boundary or generate polyline. I'm going to say new and see if we have a circular or anything like that. Select polygons, rectangular, invert clip, and rectangular. We don't see circular in there, so that's definitely probably our answer right there. Okay, so that answers that one. Refer to the exhibit. You are working in a layout in Paperspace. How do you add a custom scale to the scale list? Okay, now, select two answers. Use the scale list on the status bar, type scale list edit, use the viewport command, double click to activate the viewport, select the viewport. The only two here that make sense because it's a scale list is use the scale list on the status bar and scale list edit. You could actually do both of those from there. Viewports is not going to help you there at all. Double clicking and activating viewport is not going to do anything just to change the scale. And select viewport isn't going to do anything for you either. Which of the following can hyperlinks be linked to? Select 3. Okay. Hyperlinks be linked to. I don't mess with hyperlinks, but it says select 3 answers. An existing web page file, that makes sense. Views inside a drawing, I'm not really sure about there. Other software links. And this is a tough one. I haven't actually used these links like this, so I'm not gonna dwell on this one. My guess, other software links would be a kind of a security issue because you might have an issue there because that would open you up to exploits. Views in the side of the drawing, that's friendly enough. An existing file or web page, that's definitely easy. And layout tabs in the drawing, that could definitely be something that could actually do that with. So I can see that. Other software links, I would see that being a bad option. And that's just me guessing at that. Oh, there's another one. Links to Autolist macros. That's not going to happen either. That's not going to be in there either. You wouldn't have that one or this one in there because those are actually linking to executable code that you wouldn't want someone to actually click on that would create a vulnerability or an exploit that somebody can actually take advantage of. All right, you are working with 2 scaled viewports of different scales. The dimensions annotations in both viewports are same by way of hex height and head size. Why is this the case? Okay, the text style is associative. The dimension annotation is associative. The dimensions annotation is not annotative. The dimension style is annotative. All right, 2 scaled viewports, okay, different scales. Now, the dimensions annotations in both viewports are the same. That means they're just showing up the same in both viewports. That would basically mean that the dimension annotation is not associative, is what that would actually basically tell you there, okay? If it was annotative, it would automatically scale up. But you could have this same issue here if you didn't have an annotative scale for that particular dimension style. But 9 times out of 10, we only have one answer here. So I would say it's the dimension annotation is not annotative. All right. Refer to the exhibit. Select the letter of the layer control used to change the color of the markups layer in the current viewport. So they find the markups layer. What's going to change the color? A is obviously going to change the color in the current viewport because this is for any future viewports created in this one right here. Does that make sense? So if you create a new viewport, this is where it's going to be actually associated and changed. And yellow is actually for everything is there. You can, because you wanted to change the color of the markups later in the current viewport because the current viewport, you want to adjust it now. So that's where you have to change it right here with this. Okay. All right. Again, I could be wrong on some of these, but just basically want you to kind of look and pay attention to how some of this stuff is they're working you towards just understanding a little bit more of some of the subtle interfaces and it's how these things change. Refer to the exhibit. The text editor tab allows for the insertion of the manipulation of spectral character types. A specific character is needed to finish item 2 in the roof purlin specification shown. Select the appropriate part of the text editor in which you will need to do this. All right. So we want to insert a special character. All right. So you have A, B, C, and D. Now, the only one that says basically insert a special character, if you're going to insert right here, that's pretty basic. You're not doing justification is definitely not taking care of the insertion. Line spacing is not taking care of the insertion. Columns is not taking care of it. D is the only option, option there because you have the @ symbol right here. And so you'd actually insert this symbol here. Inserting as columns and inserting fields, but the symbol is right here. So that would be D. If an annotation scale is not assigned to an an annotative object, but is used in a scaled viewport, what happens to the annotative object? If an annotation scale is not assigned to an annotative object, it basically is it is displayed the incorrect scale. It's too large, it's too small. It just depends, but it's going to be incorrect scale right there. It's going to be basically whatever the current scale is, and that's what it's going to come across. And so you're just kind of, it's just going to be here. If it doesn't have, if that scale that, if it's, be careful here, I guess, because it is not displayed, because sometimes you can have something that's not displayed. It depends on how, and again, I don't use annotative text and stuff like that very much at all, but it's, if you added the scale factor to it, but it said it's not assigned, okay, then typically it's just going to be displayed with the incorrect scale. But if it's not, if it is assigned, then it will actually just blank, or it'll actually adjust it and shrink it down too small or whatever it is. Annotative scale, annotative text and annotative objects can get really squirrely. You want to actually pay attention and study that a little bit more if you're going to use it. Most people tend to stick all their stuff in paper space for their annotation, and they don't use the annotative tools, but some places do, so it's always good to know. I've seen a lot of things get really screwed up with annotative objects. I stick with just hatch patterns for annotative things, and I try and just keep it that way for like area classification drawings. It works pretty well. Refer to the exhibit. You want to rotate the chair on the left so it looks like the chair on the right, parallel to the desk. Pick the point on the chair that should be used at the base point. This is, you're trying to, you're not saying use the move command. They're not saying basically use the rotate command. So if you look here, you draw this line straight across here, you can see this is pretty much the only point that would make sense to basically take this and rotate it up. And that would be all you'd have to end up doing. If it's 45, whatever it is, you just actually rotate it. You'd actually use reference and actually rotate it and then align it straight up to the top there. Okay. Which tool allows you to retain and restore settings of more than one layer at a time? That's pretty easy. That's the layer states manager. I've messed with that a little bit recently because I've not used it. I usually use list routines to write out the states of my layers and then I actually import them in. But this is actually a pretty useful tool if you're actually doing that now. So it's something that's come along at some point in time, and I just haven't known about it. All right, 16, refer to the exhibit. The image below shows a design that has filleted corners, but the angle geometry has been left in place. To create fillets without trimming the corners, which setting in fillet command do you select? All right, I've never wanted to leave the lines, okay? But I assume you could actually say no trim. So it would not actually trim them off and it would actually leave them. So what I would say, leave edge is not something I would think, but let's pop over there and figure it out. Okay. I'm just gonna draw a line here. Fillet radius, and I'm going to pick a radius, boom, and I'm going to say radius trim. I'm going to say T for trim, and no trim, boom, click, click, and there's no trim. So if we go back here, no trim is the correct one. All right. The viewports. Viewports command allows you to set up viewports in the model tab, layout tabs. When a layout is current, which ribbon tab can be used to create and configure viewports. I really don't use the ribbon tab, but let's click on there. I would say I just type in viewports, but let's see. Layout, I assume. Let's see. Ribbon. On the ribbon tab. And if we go to, come here. All right. Home. Boom, boom, boom. I don't see viewports here. I assume it's under view. I'll put add-ins. I'd say it's under view, but I don't see it handy, but it might be in a different spot. Viewport configuration. Yeah, this is it right here. That's viewports command. I don't know why they call it viewports configuration. It's the viewports command. So it's on the view tab. And they don't actually show it here. They show it home, output, annotate. It's neither of those, but they may have moved it to a when a layout is when a layout's current. Hold on here. Click on layout. Now let's go to home and see if it shows up on here. Don't see it there. View. Well, it's blocked here. Boom. Home, output, output. We'll see it there. Layout. Layout. Insert a view. I mean, that one's got me. I'm not really sure. But it shows up on the view tab. All right, so let's move to the next one. Refer to the exhibit. The arc on the left needs to be modified so that it looks like the arc on the right. Which is the best method to achieve this? This one needs to be moved to here to here. Let's see, I'd probably use the rotate. That's what I'd probably use, but you can do it a little bit differently. I'll say they want it to go from here all the way. Oh, not rotate. So you just actually want to stretch that. I would just use the extend. This endpoint with this right here is probably the easiest one right here. To grab that endpoint and just kind of pull it down to that point right there. Lengthen with dynamics option. Not sure about that. What occurs if no text height is assigned in text style? You will be prompted for the text height when you actually type it in. The text style must be annotated. The text will be use the default text height unless it's changed. You will be prompted for the text height. This is the one it actually does. Refer to the exhibit. You can move the origin of the UCS using grips. Select the appropriate grip you would use to move the UCS. And that would just be this one right here. Grab that and move to wherever you want. All right. When sending an e-transmittal using e-transmit, the files can be sent as a package. Which package file type can be used? All right, something to understand here is e-transmit is something that a tool, because a lot of people would just send a file, a drawing file, and sometimes when you have a drawing file, you have dependencies. You might have XREFs, you might have a line file that needs to be go with it. Typically, line files or lines are stored in the drawing, so they won't do that. You might have some fonts or some SHX files that need to go with it. You might have some CTBs that need to go with it. And what it does, it tries to actually encompass all that into a zip file for you to actually send over. So zip is typically the one that actually will encompass that. All right, refer to the exhibit. A corner of an object requires a chamfer as shown in the exhibit. Each length A and B is different. Which option in the chamfer command gives you the desired results? Okay, so this is A, this is B. So you have your chamfer, but you're chamfering between here and you're chamfering between here. This distance between here and here is this distance 2, and this one here is distance 1 because it's A and B. All right, so trim distance is the one you want to actually do, and then it'll prompt you for 2 distances, A and B, or 1 and 2. Okay, what occurs in an external reference is attached as an overlay in the host drawing, and you then use the host drawing where the overlay is attached as an external reference. Okay, so let's read that again. What occurs if an external reference is attached as an overlay in the host drawing? Okay, and then you use the host drawing where the overlay is attached as an external reference. Since it's an overlay, it's not going to do anything, and it's just going to act as normal because it's not going to try and grab the other drawing again. Because when you're at the parent and you kind of go to the child, it's not going to go any farther than that one, so you can't look at the children there. When it's attached as a reference, it will actually look all the way down through the, and it'll go child to child to child and go all the way through the inheritance. The overlay external reference is not included with the host file. Boom. Okay. The overlay external reference is automatically included. No. The overlay external reference is included but shows as detached. No. You are prompted to open the external reference package. No. It's just this one right here. Overlay external is not included with the host file because it's an overlay. All right. What occurs when a field is inserted into text? It uses the current text style, regardless of the text style is used by the text. It uses the same text style as the text object. It uses the prompt for a new text style. It uses a different style from the text object. It uses whatever this text style is that's actually being currently in there, because a field is just a code. It's not, doesn't have font information or any of that stuff in it, but you could format it to be different if you wanted to after the fact. So that's going to be, it uses the current text style regardless of what text style is used by the text. Okay. Well, it uses the same text style as it uses this right here. This is not a really good phrasing of this because a piece of text can only use one text style. In text, you can actually blend multiple styles in there, but not just text. So again, this is the one you have to actually use. All right, which of the following object types can be converted into a region? A polygon can. I'm not sure if an ellipse can or not. Probably could. Not a block. Block cannot. A circle can be, so I'd say circle, ellipse, and polygon, because they're all closed. A region has to be closed. A line is just 2 points. It's not gonna be able to. If you went through the p-edit command and joined a bunch of lines, p lines, you can do that. Okay, after you select the vertex of a six-sided polygon, what multi-grip options are available? Select 3. Okay, stretch, remove vertex, no, lengthen, add vertex, and extend. Okay, a six-sided multi-grip option. I haven't never played with that, so I can't really tell you. I would assume there's something about moving it, extending, because when it's a polygon. It's a polygon is all it is, so you can actually grab and move anything. I don't know if you can remove vertex from that point or not, but we can find out. Let's do that. Let's take a look real quick. Oh, God. Of course, they have gotten to where they're a little bit different on some of the edge. Boom, boom. So you pick that, and you have boom. Let's see what options we have here. I can't insert. I can edit polyline close. Yeah, I can't really do anything with that. I mean, you can stretch. That works. Control-Z. And again, they may have something different now in the later version, and this may be referred to as a later version. I'm using 2020 here. I think this test is based on 2023. I think in August it's going to switch over to 2024. So this would be something you had to play with in 2023 just to make sure. Okay, refer to the exhibit. To ensure dimensions are always placed on the correct layer, you can utilize dim layer override in which area of the dimension panels is this set. Okay, right there in D, use current because they're talking about well, that could be, this is the layer symbol and it's showing the color of the layer symbol or color of that layer. So say use current would be the way that would actually work. That's the only one makes sense. To create a polygon with width about its center line, which variable should be defined? To create a polygon with width about its center line. Are they referring to a donut? I'm not sure what they're asking here. Create with a width about its center line. Oh, okay. This is confusing because it makes you think you're dealing with, yeah. They're talking about where the line itself is the center, but then it has a width that actually grows on both sides of it, and that's going to be a global width. All right. Problem is you could if you set the width while you're drawing a polyline, it's going to give you the width for while that is there. You can set it. You set the global width, and it kind of just goes there. Half width is not it. Width is not necessarily it, but it could be it depending on how they're actually phrasing the question, because this is what it shows up in the properties dialog box. But you can set the width of the polygon to be the default, and it just draws with that width. So refer to the exhibit. You want to use match properties to change all dimension annotation to use the same dimension, style, and layer. Which properties should you select? You want to change all dimension annotation to use the same dimension, style, and layer. Okay, so you would definitely do the layer. C, and this is style and layer. Oh, here it is down here. So it would be A and C would be the two you use. So you go special properties would be dimension and layer. Okay, 30. There are several blocks named K-1054 in your current drawing. If you create a new block with the same name but with a different appearance, what will occur? Okay, as we know with blocks, if you redefine the block, it affects all the blocks in the drawing, so that's pretty soon. The new blocks will update to existing ones. No, the existing blocks will update to the new block definition. That is the one it does right there. Existing blocks and new blocks will appear different. That is incorrect. Okay. Now, if we talk about dynamic blocks, it's a different story, but they did not mention anything about dynamics blocks. So how do you remove objects from a selection set? Press and hold the tab key and select objects to be removed. No. Press and hold the shift key and select the object to be. That is the correct answer right there. Control key and R key are not what you can do. If you're in a selected command and you're actually picking select objects from prompt, not using noun to verb versus verb to noun, then you could actually just, well, you wouldn't press and hold the R key. But you do use R to remove from select set when you're actually doing select command. All right, so not to confuse you, that would be Shift key. All right, where are the tools to isolate or hide objects in a drawing located? Where are the tools to isolate or hide objects in a drawing located? You know, I don't know where it's at. I usually just type the commands. I would say View tab makes a sense. Let's take a look. See here. View. Let's go back to model space. Viewport. I don't see it in there. Again, it may be something new that they've added. Let's see. Options, display, status, display. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see them up here anywhere. Innovate parametric, output, manage, operate, home. I'm just digging through here to see if I can find it because I haven't. I just type them in. I don't know that one, but I would say it's on the view, but it just might not be in this version. Okay, an array is used to place multiple instances of the same object. What is the appropriate method of placement for array objects? Along array, at set distances, along array, at variable distances, at variable distances, at set distances. An array is used to place multiple instances of the same object. What is the appropriate method of placement for the array objects? Typically at set distances. Yeah, they've changed the array command, so only what I would say is at set distances, but I'm not gonna solidify that because they have added an array in an object that actually has some things you can do and tweak with it as well. I'm gonna leave that alone though. By mistake, only the hatch object was moved in a drawing revision. Which tool will rectify this situation? By mistake, only the hatch object was moved in a drawing revision. Recreate, pick point, select, or remove. That's an interesting way there. I mean, if you remove, that's not going to do anything. If you select, it's not going to do anything. Pick point, it's not going to do anything. Recreate, you can recreate it and put everything back where it's supposed to be, but this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'd have to actually, they don't show you anything to associate that with it. I'm not sure what they're trying to point out there. Select the appropriate method to rotate a viewport. Use the rotate command, that definitely works. Rotate the UCS, that works as well. Select the viewport, right click and choose properties to change the angle property. I wouldn't do that. VP rotate command. I actually have not ever used that command. Let's see if it exists. And the viewport here. Yeah, I don't see that command. So that's not one I'd use. So yeah, you can use a rotate, or you can actually rotate the UCS. Select the appropriate method to rotate a viewport. But you're rotating the viewport, so that would be the only one to do there right there. I would not use this because I'm not a big fan of that, but you know, hey. All right, objects are selected in a drawing, Objects are selected in drawing A. You right click and choose copy with base point and specify a base point. Upon switching to the drawing B, you right click and choose paste as block. What is the result? Okay, what happens is it creates a random generated name like an $8 block name and drops it in the block in there as a block. It's kind of annoying and I don't recommend it. If you do that, then go back and rename that block. All right, the selected elements are placed as a block and exploded. That is not correct. The selected elements are placed as an unnamed block. It is named, it's not unnamed. The selected elements are placed as a group. That's incorrect. Selected elements are placed as individual elements. Okay, these are all wrong. It's not an unnamed block. It is a named block. It just has a funky name. So this is actually it. But it technically has a name. So they're just calling it unnamed because it has a randomly generated set. It's usually like $8 with some other stuff plastered behind it. And I guess since we're calling it a name, they're meaning that you need to go back and rename and actually give it a name, which would be a good thing to do, but a lot of people just don't do it. And you end up with a lot of drawings with a whole bunch of $8 sign blocks in them, which is very annoying. Which of the following statements are true about grips? Select three. You cannot use more than one operation when editing grips. That is definitely not true. Excuse me. You can select and move grips to stretch an object. Yes. Grips on text block references and midpoints of lines move the object rather than stretching it. That is incorrect. You cannot select more than one grip. That is incorrect. What are we supposed to be selecting? True. Okay. Yes, this is true. You can select and move grips to stretch an object. Yes. You cannot select more than one grip. That is incorrect. You press enter spacebar to cycle to move through, rotate, scale, or mirror grip modes. I think that one's actually true. So I'd say it's this one and this one here. All right. Refer to the exhibit. A dashed line needs to be placed that precisely connects the 2 point objects. Which object snap would be used? Okay, refer to the exhibit. A dashed line needs to be placed that precisely connects the 2 point objects. Which object snap should be used? Okay, so these are points. They're not circles, they're points. Their display is changed by using PD mode and PD size. So they may or may not actually show up anything and look like anything, but these are points. So what you want to use a node O snap. It's NODE or NOD. And you pick node, and then it would actually draw that line between those two. Oh, there it is right there. All right. Which command allows you to plot multiple drawings in AutoCAD? Publish. Plain and simple. You just publish a whole bunch of drawings and pick it out. Plot is a single file command. DBF is single out, and DXF out is actually as well, but it's not a plot. Publish and plot both allow you to plot, but publish is actually allows you to do multiple drawings. All right, refer to the exhibit. When adding new angles to the polar tracking list, certain settings have to be verified. Which settings should be used for this to happen? Okay, polar tracking. Refer to the exhibit. When adding new angles to the polar tracking list, certain settings must be verified. Which settings should be used for this? Okay. Well, not sure I understand what they're looking for. I don't use polar tracking very much at all. I would assume you have to say new because you're actually adding a new, and then you would actually have to pick, are you supposed to pick more than one or just all of them? No, just A, B, C. When adding new angles to the polar tracking list, certain settings have to be verified. Which settings should be used for this event? I don't know which one. You have to click new, but I don't think that's what they're actually looking for. Refer to the exhibit. You use the dim break tool to create the dimension break shown in the exhibit. What controls the amount of the gaps applied? There's lots of settings in there. Dim break tool, the gap option would definitely do that. Dimension properties, dimension style, the user is prompted for gap points. I believe the user is prompted for gap points. I don't ever use this, but I believe they're actually prompted for the gap points. It'll say pick, and oh, wait, this is something different. Okay, no. Yeah, that's probably this right here. That's what I'm thinking, but I don't know. All right, refer to the exhibit. The exhibit shows a wall line dash that has been offset using the offset command. What option in the offset command is used to achieve the dash offset line? The exhibit shows a wall line dash that has been offset using the offset command. What option is the offset command used to achieve the dash line offset? I assume offset the layer, offset through, source, current. Okay, I would say sort to current because your current layer is going to have whatever this, you're offsetting this to the current layer, and then it would actually be dashed. That's what I'm assuming. If you use source, it was actually using match the source, and so yeah. All right, you can use the align command to ensure consistent multi-leader display. What occurs if you align multi-leaders using the parallel option? I have no clue. I've never used that, and I actually don't use multi-leaders a lot. They are kind of cool, but I don't like the fact that they have their own interface. And if you explode them because you just want part of something to be consistent, then it actually blows up the arrowhead to the individual solid and then all lines and everything else. I'm not a big fan of them, but they do have some really cool benefits and everything else that you can utilize with them. But let's look at this, see what we can do. The text blocks automatically become parallel to each other. The arrowheads automatically become parallel to each other. The landing line segments become parallel to each other. I would assume it was this. That'd be the only sense for leaders, because if you actually try to make them all parallel, they wouldn't necessarily all line up very cleanly, and it'd actually grow rather large in your drawing. That would be the one I'd actually state. Leader line segments automatically become parallel to each other. I'd have to actually play with it. I don't know. An X line is infinite in how many directions? X line is infinite in how many directions? 2. That's the only one I would say. How do you identify the annotative scale of a text object? I mean, if you think about this one, it's a line. So it has 2 points, and it would only go in left or right or up or down or whatever angle it's at. It wouldn't actually be curved or anything like that. So it's not an arc. So it'd only be two directions. Let's see what you mean. Okay, thank you. All right. How do you identify the annotative scale of a text object? Don't click text object. No. Select the object, right click, select properties. That definitely works. Hover over the text object, check the text style settings. This would be the way I do it. You check to see if the text object is actually annotated or not from that particular aspect. That's what I would say. Again, I don't know that I'm 100% right on these. This is what I'm kind of going with. I'm trying to help you see my logic and how I'm applying it to get to the answers I go with and get to. Refer to the exhibit. 3 multi-leaders in a drawing before need to be revised to suit the new leader arrangement after. Which multi-leader command should you use? Again, I don't use multi-leader, so that's kind of what I end up. All right, before and after. Okay, that's interesting. Align, collect, and remove. The only one that I would say that makes the sense would be collect. That would be the only one. Add doesn't really do any good. Remove doesn't really do any good. And align doesn't really do any good, but I would say collect would definitely do it. Again, that's another feature I wasn't aware of on multi-leaders. Okay, refer to the exhibit. Blocks not being used in a drawing can be tidied up using the purge command, as shown in the exhibit, which option allows you to check sequentially which blocks are being purged from the drawing. Okay, right here, A allows you to actually check them sequentially and kind of going down the list. If they're talking about nested, that's a different story. Confirm each night, because you have nested options in here, but they're not pointing to that. Orphan data, D isn't it. C, where's a B? Find non-purged item. That's definitely not going to do it for you. But this would actually be sequential because you just kind of see them all on the list. All right, to represent a circular hole in a 2D isometric view, which command should you use? Represent a circular hole in a 2D isometric. You can use an iso circle, a circle, spline, or ellipse. I've always used ellipse. I don't know there is an iso circle command, but let's try it out. Yeah, I didn't think so because ellipse is an iso circle, or I could make it an isometric circle. So I'd say ellipse. You are working AutoCAD and there is an unexpected power outage. Upon powering up AutoCAD, this is important right here. You would definitely want to know how to actually deal with this. Upon powering up AutoCAD again, what tool would you use to check the integrity of the drawing file you're working on? Okay, you have audit, status, purge, and recover. Now, if you're checking the status, integrity of the file, okay, that's going to be audit. All right, that's going to go through and check, make sure everything's good and everything else. Recover is if it comes up and it actually already has some corruption issues, it'll actually tell you drawing needs to be recovered. You use the recover command. Purge allows you to actually go through and clean up a lot of just trash in the drawing. You have blocks that aren't being used. You have layers that aren't being used, textiles, whatever are not being used. Status doesn't really give you any of that. Doesn't actually get rid of any drawings or anything like that. Audit doesn't really delete anything, but it can delete things when it actually goes through and finds some things that are referenced that are no longer in the valid in the drawing. It'll actually fix those records. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there. I did seem to ramble on forever, so I will not continue on. I want to have a few more. Let's just do that. A rectangular boundary encloses a landscaping layout represented by a number of geometric objects. When hatching, the hatch pattern covers all the objects within the boundary. Which hatch setting needs to be changed? you want to basically normal island detection is what you actually want to get into. Because if your landscape layout represented by numbered geometric islands, when hatching, the hatch pattern covers all the objects within the boundary. You want to have normal island detection. If you say outer island detection, it's not going to quite get you what you want. Ignore island detection. It's going to basically do exactly what it's talking about here. It's going to override them. And separate hatches is not going to be what you want either. All right, refer to the exhibit. Which area of the interface is used to filter for line objects on the drawing? Okay, you can use quick select, and what you do is you right here at the top, you select object type, and you select that to line is what you would do, because it says multiple right now. As soon as you pull that down, it'll show you all the object types that are actually in that drawing, and you can select line from that point. 52, convert a line segment of a polyline into an arc. Which part of the polyline should be used? Convert a line segment of a polyline into an arc. Which part of the polyline should be used? Well, you have to start the arc from. I'm going to say the midpoint grip. Kids are using grips here to do it. I haven't ever done that, so I'd have to try that out at some point in time. You have a drawing with several blocks in it. You want to make sure that the blocks are saved to a separate drive folder as separate drawing files. Which command should be used? That would be the W block command, write block. It means write the block out to a file. Okay, save as doesn't do it, bedit doesn't do it, and block doesn't do it. How does drawing compare automatically display the differences between the drawings? It will use colors to do that. Okay, it'll typically show you like this color's green, this one's red, to show those differences. Like green is moved, red is actually new, and stuff like that. What workflow should be used in order to create a corner between two perpendicular lines? Fillet. Okay, that's kind of an easy one right there. Okay, and that's it. All right, so we kind of went through all that. Again, I would probably not have scored 100% on that, but should have been pretty close to, or definitely a passing grade, I would assume. But it kind of focuses on some of the nuances of the interface, and it's going to be kind of tying into some of the newer aspects of the interface as well. And you can get to this pretest at AutoCAD's website or Autodesk website. So if you actually want to go in there and take the pretest, then there's also some sample tests, and there are going to be a lot of these same questions in their sample test to kind of rearrange for you. All right. Well, Cody, I did say I was going to try and tease you with some 3D stuff, but I think I'm just going to stop there. And because I think I've talked and blabbered way too long, and we'll kind of just stop there. Okay. Got any questions?
No, I was pretty much just watching how you were going through each one and figuring out like problem solving on how to like.
Was any of that helpful? I mean,
yeah, there was some in there that I didn't know that I was like, oh, okay. Like I didn't know you could do that with the leaders with the 3 different.
Yeah, I didn't know you could actually combine them as well or collect. I'm just assuming that's the thing. I don't use multi-leaders, but definitely something you can do. If you're using multi-leaders with a cool block on them or something like that, that's kind of a neat feature. So cool.
Gotcha.
All right. I'm going to stop this recording then since we're all right. Boom.